Hi guys, good morning and welcome to another episode of my YouTube channel, Kaya Kaynak 97. Sorry, it's been a while since I've spoken to you last. My last video was on Friday. My intention was to try and speak to you all loads over the weekend, but life gets in the way. It can get a bit busy, and I also wanted to come on and streamed to you again last night about the big news we were able to get on football.london, about big news I was able to get for you guys. But unfortunately, again, life gets in the way. You know how busy it can be sometimes. I'm developing a newfound respect for all these guys who are able to do this every single day. Content clock, it is unbelievably impressive, and the amount of work that goes into this kind of YouTube thing, the stuff you see behind the scenes. So fair play to everyone who is doing this, and fair play to everyone who is subscribing. Thank you again so much, everyone who is a part of this channel already, a part of this community of fans. We're up to 995 subscribers. I'd love to hit the 1,000 subscribers mark by the end of the day. So if you know anyone who's interested in Arsenal content, in Arsenal stuff, news, reaction, analysis, you name it, hopefully some interviews in the future, then please do recommend the channel to them. Like this video, subscribe. Please keep leaving your feedback in the comments. I'm hoping that my video is a bit louder for you today. That's the plan. Please let me know if it isn't in the comments. I've heard a few people saying it's been a bit too quiet, so trying to address that. I've also, of course, got my trusty hot chocolate mug here to start the day. So I guess now that stuff is out of the way, we can move on to the big story yesterday, which I was fortunate enough to be able to break. That's Granit Xhaka looks to be set to leave Arsenal permanently to join Bayer Leverkusen. Of course, this isn't necessarily brand new news. We all saw those reports a few weeks ago, about a month and a half ago, just before the end of the season, that suggested that he would be on his way. What is new is the fee. So before, it was our understanding that it was around a £13 million fee, 15 million euros, I think. Now I understand that fee to be 25 million euros, which is great news for Arsenal as far as I'm concerned. That's 21.5 million pounds. For the American viewers, I'm sorry, I don't know the translation to dollars. I probably should get on that, given that I'm going to America for the preseason tour very soon. But yes, in my opinion, very good news for Arsenal, very good business. 25 million euros is probably the most you could get for Granit Xhaka. Let's bear in mind he's got 12 months on his contract. Yes, Arsenal have the option to extend that, but it does have to be sort of mutually agreed. And then there's also stuff to consider, like his age. He is 30, going to be 31 in September. So essentially will be 31 for the coming season. I don't see Arsenal getting anything better than what they're getting right now. And I see the argument for Granit to stay, and I'm kind of the opinion, and hang on, actually, I've got some graphics here for you because I've been told that the graphics are much better. There we go. There's Granit there, waving goodbye. It was great that he did get his chance to say goodbye, obviously with all the reports that we had before the end of the season. You see the farewell Granit banner there. He scored 2 goals on the final day against Wolves, so that was nice. But unfortunately, it does seem as though his time at Arsenal is going to come to an end. And like I was saying there, I really do understand why people would want to keep Granit Xhaka. I think I would be pro keeping him if possible, when you consider that Declan Rice is potentially coming in. We'll have a little bit more on that later in the video. And you've got Partey, who may be moving on. You've got Jorginho, who's a little bit older. And you've got some of the younger players who are coming in, like Kai Havertz, Emil Smith-Rowe, Fabio Vieira, all those young guys who could do with a bit of, I guess, leadership in the midfield. Not that Martin Odegaard doesn't provide it. I think he's a fantastic leader, but it's a different type of leadership that Granit offers. The question is, with those players coming in, with Havertz having come in, with Rice seemingly on his way in, does Granit start every single game? And in my opinion, he does not. I think the first choice midfield currently is looking like it's going to be Rice, Havertz, and Odegaard for the coming season. Obviously, Rice has been signed with the idea of playing midfield in mind. So Havertz even. So with that in mind, does Granit strike you as the kind of guy who would want to be on the bench, on the periphery, not a main character in this play? I think he'd be a fantastic professional about it, and there's no suggestion that he'd be anything else. He's loved within the dressing room, he's respected within the dressing room, but for him, he's 30 now. I don't know if he's at a stage in his career, especially with the Euros coming up next year for Switzerland. I don't know if he'll be at a stage in his career where he thinks, I can afford to sit back, I can afford to just be on the bench for a season. A player's career time is limited, and he can go to Bayer Leverkusen. He'll play week in, week out. He'll be a star in that league. I've no doubt about that. He'll get all the things he wants. It's a slightly slower paced league as well in Germany. I know the counter-attacking is very intense, but I think he obviously succeeded there before when he was Borussia Mönchengladbach captain, and now he's going to Bayer Leverkusen under the tutelage of Xabi Alonso. And I think it's a move that works out for all parties. Again, it's quite sad to see him go because he's been so good over the past season. The remontada, I guess. I probably should have included a picture of the Crystal Palace game that we all remember, where he was, hounded off the pitch by the Arsenal fans. I was there that day as a fan, and lots of swearing, lots of shouting from both Xhaka and the players, and Xhaka and the fans. And the comeback from that point has been miraculous. It's a well-trodden path. I don't think we need to go necessarily too deep into it at this point. We all know the story, but it's worth referencing how good he was this season and how impressive he was. But I do think those runs beyond the final defender, the third man runs, if you like, the Aaron Ramsey type runs that Xhaka became good at last season, there are players who can probably do it better. And listen, Xhaka this season, to adapt to that role, came back to preseason 4 kilos lighter, never stopped training throughout the summer, dedication beyond, I think, any reasonable expectations. And that's as a guy who'd been at the club for 6 years. It would have been easy for him to sort of sit back and say, "Wow, I'm already one of the big dogs here. I don't need to throw myself into this. I don't need to train as hard." But that's the professionalism of the guy and the hunger of the guy. And obviously, that kind of atmosphere and motivation will be missed. And listen, it'd be a big hole, and I think we're all a little bit nervous about the hole that Granit leaves behind because obviously Declan Rice is coming in as a new player. I think we'd all like Granit to be around for that first season if possible, but it doesn't seem like that's going to be possible. And how many times have we had those conversations where it's been Arsenal need to let go of players at the right time? They need to extract maximum value for players. Initially, when it was £13 million, I think we could have probably made an argument that, hang on, no, for that money, Arsenal should hold on to him. But now at 21.5, now 25 million euros, I have to say, I think it's a sensible piece of business, and it's a shame to see him go. We all had that very emotional farewell, and everyone was very happy to see him score twice. He scored twice in front of the clock end, said his farewells, but I think it's probably time for Granit Xhaka to go, and it's going to be sad to see him leave. But with him leaving, obviously does bring in potential new midfielders. We've already got Kai Havertz come in, and there are other players on the way. Declan Rice seems to be one of those. My information yesterday, as I spoke to people in and around the club, was still that the positive talks were ongoing. I don't think it's quite sort of done, if you know what I mean. So I don't think it's quite there yet. There's still a few things that need to be ironed out. There's still a few things that need to be, a few boxes that need to be ticked, a few I's that need to be dotted, a few T's that need to be crossed. But I would say, given that Man City have pulled out, Bayern have pulled out, Man United have pulled out, Chelsea have pulled out, I don't really see any competition right now for Arsenal. It's just a case of sorting out the final parts of that deal. So yeah, that stuff is all going to be hopefully ironed out very soon. Again, great piece of news for Arsenal. We've analysed that in depth over the past couple of videos, and please do go back over those and watch them and let me know what you think about Declan Rice coming in potentially for Granit Xhaka, although it does seem that he might be playing a slightly deeper role with Havertz playing as the left 8 and Ødegaard playing as the right 8. My plan is to actually bring you a video along those lines, but yeah, frustratingly with Declan Rice, there doesn't seem to be any new news for right now. I saw that the reports that the announcement was expected this week. I am sort of leaning towards, and this is a hunch, it's not based on like any concrete information that I've got, just the noises I got yesterday from calling around. It was my first day back at work yesterday after 2 weeks off. So just from the noises calling around, it does seem as though it'd be later towards the end of the week if it is announced, but maybe it'll be done by the end of the week, but Arsenal might announce it later, if that makes sense. They've got lots of things they need to sort. There's contracts, there's Reece Nelson and William Saliba's contracts which need to be announced. There's the signing of Yuri Timber potentially, which needs to be announced. There's lots of things going on in the club. There's hopefully very soon the signing of Alessia Russo as well on the women's side of things. And I think as a club, the Arsenal communication staff are very sort of coherent right now. They're very aware of not overlapping. They're very aware of trying to let, Alessia Russo signing have its day in the sun, Declan Rice signing have its day in the sun, Saliba contract have its day in the sun, if that makes sense. So they're wanting to make sure that everything is done, in time. There's no need to rush things, I think. And, as long as that stuff is more or less done, then I think we can all rest relatively easy on Declan Rice. And yeah, it does seem as though that's heading towards a positive conclusion. I did mention Alessia Russo there, and it does seem as though she will be on her way to joining from Manchester United, not confirmed yet officially, but there were, of course, those reports yesterday that she was in and around the Emirates Stadium. A great piece of news for the Arsenal women. A great signing. And I'm really interested to see how, Jonas Eidevall fits her into the team with Miedemar. Miedemar's obviously played a little bit deeper as a 10 when Stina Blackstenius has been in the side. And what does this mean for Stina, who was obviously so good last season when there was the injury crisis and many people thought she wouldn't be able to step up, but she did, and she was crucial in that Champions League run to the semi-final. And it's an interesting one. It's obviously a nice problem to have, too many good players. But Alessia Russo, in my opinion, was up there with the best strikers in the WSL last season. I think she's up there with the best strikers in the world right now. I'm hoping she'll prove that, pardon me, going into the World Cup. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Arsenal choose to do with her. There's obviously Beth Mead as well, Caitlin Ford, plenty of other attacking threats that Arsenal have. And it's looking very exciting from an Arsenal point of view, the Arsenal women's point of view, as they go for that WSL title, the first one it would be since 2017. They look like they've got a lot of strength and depth to go challenge Chelsea. And it seems like they're being financially backed as well. Obviously, they would have tried, or they did try to get Russo for what would have been a world record fee of around £500,000 in January. And Manchester United rejected that. And now the Arsenal are signing him for free. So you make sense of that business. I suppose they wanted to keep her for the remainder of the title run. But yeah, I think it's heading in the right direction for Arsenal. It does seem as though Russo will be an Arsenal player, hopefully very soon. Hopefully that will be announced in the coming, how do I put this? In the coming few days, I guess. So that is another thing that we can talk about positively. One more interesting thing I wanted to bring up with you guys actually was some quotes I saw yesterday from Albert Sambi Lokonga. I don't think they've been covered in depth that much, and I just figured that we could maybe discuss them a little bit. So the quotes are from Sambi when he asked sort of what position, where he will be next season. He was speaking on a Korean YouTube channel. I think it was identified on Reddit, r/Gunners. Fair play to them. Excellent, as always, in terms of spotting those things. I don't quite know how you guys do it, but you're pretty incredible at finding these things, and it makes our life as journalists so much easier. So thank you. But yeah, his quotes were, I don't know. I will try to go somewhere where I can play. That's the most important thing for me. Try to play some games. Try to play game after game. And I get that for Sambi. He's come in to Arsenal and he was the Anderlecht captain. He was a regular. He was playing every single game, every single week. And to come into Arsenal, into a team where there's a lot more competition for places, I think he struggled. Some players thrive under that pressure. I think he struggled a bit. I think he maybe needed to feel a bit more comfortable within the first team, a bit more like he had a place. But again, and I say this with Fabio Vieira as well. You come into a big club like Arsenal, there's going to be competition, and you have to handle that. You have to be able to be at peace with that. And I don't know if Sambi ever was. I compare him to, potential further signings, Romeo Lavia, who's been linked very heavily, and is Belgian teammate. And I do wonder if, Sambi just seems to lack that defensive intensity to play the 6. He doesn't quite have the offensive capabilities to play the 8. And you look at the reality of the situation now. Jorginho says he's not going. Declan Rice is coming in. Thomas Partey is still at the club, despite those links that, he could be available for transfer. And it is my understanding that Thomas Partey could be available for transfer among several other players. And we'll get onto the exits, hopefully, if I can remember a little bit later in the show. But you look at the left 8 again, Smith Rowe, Vieira, Odegaard, Havertz, those positions. Is Lokonga going to play? No. And he wants to play. Totally fair. He's got 3 years left on his deal. I wonder if Arsenal might look to loan him. I don't know. I think they're open. They are. In fact, I know they are open to permanent offers for him. It'd be interesting to see if a Premier League team does come in for him, or if he goes back out to Belgium, if he goes out to Italy. I know there were links to AC Milan in January. The Crystal Palace loan started well with Patrick Vieira, but once Vieira got sacked, it obviously didn't quite go to plan for him. So yeah, it's a frustrating time for Sambi. I mean, it was almost a joke within the press pack. I properly invested in Sambi stocks. I really thought he was going to be a good player. I remember that first pre-season, the really COVID hit pre-season when Arsenal were up in Scotland for a couple of games, and then they had the Mind series against Chelsea and Spurs. And I saw Sambi play against Spurs, and Arsenal lost that game, and they were pretty atrocious. They looked like they had no attacking plan whatsoever, and it was just before that run of games where Arsenal lost 3 to start the season. We all know Mikel Arteta was reportedly close to being sacked, even though he was never actually close to being sacked. And, that narrative seems to have run away from us. But I watched that game with Sambi and I just thought, wow, this guy is good. He's always looking to pass forward. There's a player in there. Unfortunately, I think when he came in, he had confidence. That seems to have evaporated now. That confidence seems to have well and truly gone. And with that, I think his chances of probably making it at Arsenal have gone too. And Mikel Arteta doesn't seem to trust him, sadly. I remember the game against Man City where he was screamed at by Martin Odegaard, taken off, not really, able to to do what Thomas Partey is able to do in that 6 role, not able to do what Granit Xhaka is able to do in the 8 role. And yeah, I just don't think it really worked for him. And it's a shame. Things just didn't go his way at Arsenal. But, we'll see what happens. See if Arsenal are able to get a good business done for him. Granit Xhaka was 25 million euros. What would you say Sambi's worth? Let me know in the comments. I'd say around 20. Arsenal obviously bought him in for around 20 million euros. They'd want to recoup as much of that fee as possible. And he's got quite a lot on his contract left. Belgian international, young. But yeah, it does appear to be on his way out of Arsenal right now. One more thing I wanted to touch on before I get to your questions, and there'll be a bit of injury news within the questions as well. So please do stick around for that, guys, is, yes, the exits. So it's an interesting one when it comes to exits. I think most of the loan players who were obviously away from the team last season, it's hard to see too many of them getting back into the team right now. And in that I include Sambi Lokonga, Nuno Tavares, Flo Balogun, Pablo Mari's obviously already gone to Monza. That's Arsenal's first sale, I guess, of the summer, official sale. I could be wrong. I can't remember any others. What else is there? Who else is there even? Nicola Pepe, Austin Trusty, Ruler Alex Rennerson. All those guys potentially going. It does seem as though Arthur Okonkwo is in talks for a move to Sturm Graz. I'm not sure whether that's permanent or a loan. I will try and find that out for you. But yeah, the Arsenal left-back situation is interesting with Tavares and Tierney. Tierney, I don't know if Arsenal will as publicly put it out there, because I think there's still a hope that if he is involved in the team next season, they want to make him feel part of it. But when it comes to players who were on loan last season, I don't think it's unfair to say those guys are players who the Arsenal would be willing to let go. So yeah, that's the sales front. The loanees from last season, you guys can go through all the specific names. I think I've mentioned all of them there, but I might have forgotten a few. But yeah, that does seem to be that Arsenal are looking to try and sell those. And I wonder if maybe once they get these 3 signings done, not confirmed yet. As always, we have to caveat that, but Rice and Timber heading in the right direction. And once they hopefully get those done and over the line, then they'll start to shift gear and a bit more towards selling before maybe bringing in that mystery fourth transfer. So on to your questions now, guys. And so I will come back to that one in a second. I wanted to get to first. Yes, was this one from Grind It Out. And yeah, thank you very much for your questions in the comment section, guys. Do keep them coming in. I will keep answering them as much as I can. So I really enjoy reading them. Thank you so much for submitting them. And this is from Grind It Out. Like the changes, thank you very much. His question is, do you have any updates on injuries? Martinelli, Saliba and Tomiyasu in particular. All a bit quiet on this. Will we see them early on tour? So when it comes to Tomiyasu, I put out a piece, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, saying that he will be back in time for pre-season. So his recovery is progressing well. I think the hope is that he will be involved in pre-season. He is going to be fit. There were some fears that his injury was going to be slightly longer term, but thankfully it does seem as though he's getting better. There was obviously that picture of him training with Saliba, with Trossard, and there was another Arsenal player in there, but I can't remember who it was. I want to say Martinelli. And those guys all obviously doing work with a personal trainer over the period out. Tomiyasu, that's done. Martinelli and Saliba. So I know that they both reported for training yesterday. I know they're not included in those pictures that were released on Getty as far as I could see. I had a little scroll through this morning. I couldn't see them there. But they were included on, they were reporting back. They did report back from training yesterday. Same with Alex Zinchenko. When it comes to Zinchenko, I think it's interesting that Lino Souza was pictured with the first team, obviously the under-23 left-back. Very highly rated, very promising player. I really like him, so do keep an eye out on him. I expect him to be involved in pre-season, so please do keep an eye on him. He's going to be a really good player to watch. But it's interesting that if he's involved with, Tierney not back yet, Tavares obviously has been away on under 21 duty. I wonder if Arsenal just needed a left back in there, and they've drafted him in. Zinchenko, reported back as well. They didn't involve him, but it's weird because I feel like I might be giving you guys a slight wrong impression if I say that he wasn't involved in full training, because yesterday was very light. I spoke to people around the club and they said it's really just coming back for testing. That's kind of what day one is, a bit of a run around, bit of sort of seeing how the players are after the summer, physically, mentally, tactically, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, Saliba and Tomiyasu, Martinelli all reported for training. Zinchenko yesterday as well. But as far as I'm aware, and from what I can see in those pictures on Getty, it didn't seem that they were involved in the running on the pitch, but that's not confirmed. I know they were there, and I don't want to suggest anything to suggest they won't be involved for pre-season. It does seem as though positivity is the right policy on those ones, but I can't say that for certain. So that was the question I wanted to get to first. I might as well go in reverse order. And Andy, hello, and so glad you started up your own channel. Thank you very much, Andy. Really appreciate that and really appreciate the support. Very nice comment after that, which I feel almost embarrassed to read. So I'll just get straight to the question. There's been quite a few rumours on Eddie Nketiah's future. I know he recently signed a long-term contract, but do you think there's a chance this has been done with a future sale in mind? Or do you think Mikel really sees him as a striker who can push Jesus for a starting position? It's a really, really good question. I think, so obviously, when it comes to Eddie Nketiah's contract, value protection will always be something Arsenal consider. It's the same with Reece Nelson this time around, and I should say Reece Nelson and William Saliba's contracts both heading in the right direction. Hopefully, will be confirmed in the coming days and weeks. So worth mentioning that. But with Eddie, I think last season we sort of saw what he could offer to the team in that run immediately after the World Cup, where he came in, scored three goals in 3 games, scored the winner against Manchester United, played a really important role, but we saw that he's not the same player as Gabriel Jesus. And I think he tends to stay within the goalpost generally, as opposed to Jesus, who is all over the place, and Martinelli can interact with him and change positions, and Saka can change positions, and all those guys can be unpredictable up top. And that was why when I think Trossard came in, it looked a bit better than with Eddie up top. So yeah, it's an interesting one. Obviously, Trossard's in there. Havertz can play there. Jesus is first choice without doubt. Martinelli can play there, although I think Eddie would play up front ahead of Martinelli. I don't know. I think it's a case of maybe if an offer came in, Arsenal might consider it. And that's just conjecture. That's not like insider info, if you like. That's just my hunch. I do think that Eddie has played an important role, and Mikel clearly really loves him. And I think most importantly for Eddie, he's a player who's a good influence on the training ground when he's not playing. He's very, his attitude is always right, and he's always really refreshing to talk to in press conferences. Because when you get a hold of Eddie, I remember in September we got him before a Europa League game, and it was basically just a practice of every single journalist in the room trying to ask the exact same question differently. And the exact same question was, why did you sign a new contract if you knew you probably weren't going to play? And his response was very calm. Look, I know I'm going to get chances throughout the season. It's a long season. I'm going to play. I just need to keep doing all the right things until then. And in fairness to Eddie, he got his chance. He largely took it. I thought he was good. I know lots of people don't. I thought he was pretty good, and he did a good job in terms of leading the line and keeping Arsenal in that title race. Because I remember, and we forget this very easily, but after the World Cup, everyone was panicking, saying, how will Arsenal stay in the title race? How will Arsenal cope without Gabriel Jesus, who's been their best player in the first half of the season? Eddie Nketiah. That's how they managed to cope. So, yeah, having said that, I do think that, Arsenal might be open to offers if a good offer comes in. I reckon if a team comes in and offers 35, 40 mil, I don't know if Arsenal would be willing to say no. The problem is, if Eddie does go, you do then have to go out and get a replacement. And I don't think you can, go into the season with one striker in Gabriel Jesus, one out-and-out striker, and then obviously you've got the other options. But I don't think you can go into a season where you've got Champions League and Premier League football without someone in. Given that Flo Balogun is open for a potential permanent sale and he wants to be first choice somewhere next season, I just don't see Arsenal not signing another centre-forward if Eddie does leave. So, yeah, maybe it's one where Arsenal have got so much to do this window and they've got so much to do in the midfield, so much to do at the back, that maybe the centre-forward position gets left for a little while, and maybe they go again at it in January, or they go again at it in the future. But I'd say that's one to keep an eye on going forward, Eddie Nketiah's situation, because I think it's a really interesting one, and I agree with you. But there's definitely money to be made there. He's a very exciting England's under-21 record goal scorer, let's not forget. Premier League player, proven Premier League player. Hopefully will prove himself in the Champions League next season as well. And those can go for a lot of money. And Eddie seems to be, changing his reputation when it comes to sales with Granit Xhaka's sale. I think that's going to be huge. So hopefully Arsenal can get a bit of money there. Let's come on to this question from Corey. Given that a significant amount of our incoming business has been done, do you think Arsenal will look at a backup for Saka? Corey likes Alessia, but his price tag will be significant. I like Alessia too, but I do agree with you. Significant price tag. I've been going for about 25 minutes, so I'm going to go through these ones quite quickly, guys. Sorry if I'm not giving your question the attention it deserves, but I've been going for a while now, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. But yeah, a really good question. I think maybe that Reece Nelson is sort of that backup, and Jesus can play on the right, Havertz can play on the right, Smith Rowe can play there, Trossard can play there. There's options. I think Arsenal do have options in the squad. Fabio Vieira can play on the right wing too. So there's plenty of players who can play in different positions. Plenty of players who can play on the right wing, I think. And I do think Arsenal are just about set, but in an ideal world, you'd be able to bring in an out-and-out backup for Kaya Kaynak. I wonder if that's, again, maybe something a little bit further down the line that Arsenal revisit when they've got a bit more money to play with in the transfer market. I think we might have to reassess the Arsenal's ability to buy players when they've completed a lot more sales. I think that's something that we need to look at going forwards in the window. Final question that I'm going to get to. Mark Taylor says, Kaya, do you think Arteta will play with two inverted fullbacks at the same time, or can you see Arteta using combos of either Zinni, White, KT, Timber? I do wonder this, and the reason I wonder this is because Havertz coming in. I know Xhaka got forward, but Havertz is a more offensively minded player, and let's just say, you've got Ben White doing the overlapping thing. He contributes to the attack. Zinchenko sometimes contributes to the attack, but you end up with 6 in the final third, which isn't really the sort of Johan Cruyff, Pep Guardiola principle. They like to have 5 in attack, 5 in defence. So obviously the 5 up front would be Martinelli, Jesus, Odegaard, Saka, and then Xhaka supporting in big games when maybe they need a bit more defensive. Now, so they play a more defensive player. I think it's certainly a possibility. And I think, again, this is something that's really important. And we do forget this as Arsenal fans and journalists, that Arteta's not looking to build a team. He's looking to build a squad. So he wants, maybe there'll be games where Zinchenko and White are the best option. Maybe there'll be games where Tomiyasu at left back and Yuri and Timber at right back are the best option. Maybe that'll be what he goes for. There's various different options now within this squad. And I think we all saw Arsenal last season, and we saw those 8 or so players who were nailed on starters and maybe 2 or 3 potential sort of adjustments. Arteta, I don't think wants to be his team like that. And if you look at how Manchester City, let's be real, this Manchester City side are kind of the blueprint in terms of where Mikel Arteta's taking his Arsenal team. I think if you look at that, it's very easy to notice that Arsenal are looking towards eventually sort of being a team where you have no idea what starting 11 they're going to play. And I'm planning on doing predicted XI videos, so that'll make my life a lot easier going forward for next season. But yeah, I think that's the kind of stuff that Arsenal will want to be looking at. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, Mark. Very good question. And I think it's certainly a possibility that Arsenal play 2 inverted fullbacks, depending on the opposition. Maybe they'll want to pack the midfield some weeks. Maybe they'll want a bit more width other weeks. It really does depend. So I would say definitely a possibility. So let's end things there. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm nearly at the half-hour mark, so if you'd stayed all the way through to the end, really appreciate that. From a thumbs up, a little bit higher even. Keep drinking your hot chocolates. Keep subscribing to the channel. Keep following me on all those things you can see along the bottom, on Twitter at Kaya Kaynak 97, Facebook at Kaya Kaynak Journalist, and Instagram at Kaya Kaynak FL. The Instagram page is building nicely, so thank you very much to everyone who's followed me there. Please do keep following me on all the stuff, and please keep subscribing to this channel. It helps massively. Your support is driving me through to keep doing these videos. It's so nice. I go on Twitter, and it's such a contrast. Twitter can be quite negative and aggressive and acerbic, and YouTube, everyone's so lovely in the comments, and I really appreciate that. It's really given me the motivation to keep on going. So thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate your time. Really appreciate you all watching, and hopefully see you again for another video very soon. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.